What's going on, guys? Lomax here, and today I'm going to be bringing you the final part of a video series on how to level Gaige from level 1 to level 80 OP10. We're going to be covering Digistruct Peak in this video, which will cover the overpower levels. When you hit level 80 in Borderlands 2, you can now attempt to gain overpower levels, or OP levels for short. These are an additional, optional challenge that you can do to make your game harder and get better loot. And by better loot, I mean it's just at a higher level. As you gain OP levels, the level of enemies will rise by 1 for every OP level you gain. So at OP5, enemies will be at levels 85 to 87 as opposed to 80 to 82 at OP0. Now because they are at a much higher level than you are, a damage reduction penalty will kick in. And the gauntlet itself will get more and more complex the further you climb in OP level until OP8. And then after that, it's just a matter of damage reduction. To attempt the OP levels, you must travel to the raid on Digistruct Peak and speak with Tannis. She will give you one quest to open a door, and then the second she gives you is the peak run itself. For those of you who are new to DigiPeak, just know that it is challenging with most characters. And unless you're sham-pleading through it with Gaige with max anarchy stacks, it will be tough. As you go through it more and become familiar with it, it will get easier, but you will probably die. And it can be frustrating because when you die in the peak, you will have to restart whatever run you're on. So if you're running the OP4 peak to get to OP5 and you die, you will have to restart the OP4 run. Again, a lot of it will be a learning experience and will come down to knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your character. Before you attempt to run Digistruct Peak, you'll want to make sure you have all of your ammunition STUs from Crazy Earl. Now the fastest way to get all the iridium that you will need is to go back to normal mode and complete the Tiny Tina DLC if you haven't already. Then you want to talk to Torg to do the quest Fake Geek Guy, if you haven't completed it, and then Raiders of the Last Boss to fight the Ancient Dragons. You will need 20 iridium to enter the Winged Storm where the dragons are. Then you'll want to kill them over and over until you have 500 iridium. If you summon Deathtrap, you can take them all out without you having to do anything. Just repeat this until you have all of the ammunition STUs. In case you do not have 20 iridium, you can farm the warrior on normal until you do. Now elemental damage works differently in the peak than it does outside of it. Corrosive damage is king in the peak. It is effective against everything except for shields. Shock is just as effective against everything except for loaders and some of the bigger enemies we'll see later, but it is the most effective against shields. Now in general, shields are not a problem, so you will be fine using corrosive weapons on them. Fire is just as effective against everything the other two elemental types are except for loaders, the same bigger enemies, and shields. So the general rule of thumb is if you can get a weapon in multiple elements, corrosive is the best, followed by shock, and then fire. Some enemies such as spider ants are weird with their elemental resistances in the peak. They take an equal amount of damage from all elements if you crit them, but if you hit their armor, then fire is the strongest element to use, followed by shock, then corrosive. The eye of loaders and constructors are also neutral to all elements, but loaders in general are weakest to corrosion. I mainly started out with corrosive damage, but switched over to shock for some of the later runs and will explain why when we get there. For this video, I ran Gaige from OP0 to OP10 and farmed all the gear in between the runs. I'm not going to show you the farming because I didn't record it, but I will show you all of the gear that I used on each run and how I handled getting to OP10. My approach to running through the peak levels was to reset my playthrough as little as possible, so I didn't use the best gear that I could have for most of these runs. The gear you see for the OP9 run will work for any run, but gear for the OP0 run in my case will not be ideal for the OP9 run. You shouldn't feel limited by the way that I did it. If you want to reset to get on-level fibbers after every OP level, or farm a B at every new OP level, go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with doing that if you're willing to invest the time into it. What I chose here is just one way to get to OP10. For the OP0 run, I didn't run with anything too hard to farm. You don't fight anything super challenging in the first few OP levels and are not battling insane damage reduction as you will later on. First, I had a grog nozzle for slagging and healing. Next, a hornet from Knuckle Dragger, as this weapon is an easy gun to obtain and is always corrosive, which will work on everything in the peak other than shields, which themselves are not really a great concern. Next, a Hydra because I figured I'd try it out. It's good for stacking and pretty easy to obtain. And I wanted something other than a pistol so I didn't burn through all my ammo. Lastly, a corrosive Topnia in case I went in to fight for your life. For a shield, I'm using a B for extra damage. I'm also running with a legendary Anarchist class mod for stacking mainly because I'm starting at 0 stacks and it's the best mod for stacking. I started every run from 0 stacks to show that it is possible if you don't want to pre-stack. Now I have nothing against pre-stacking, I just don't like taking the time to do it. Next, I have a ×4 magic missile grenade for slagging. This grenade can be obtained from badass wizards found in the badass round of the magic slaughter. I went into normal mode to get this because the badass round can be quite tough in UVHM with less than ideal gear, and you really don't need an on-level one because it could kill you if you're too close to it. An on-level one and a level 35 one will both have the same slag chance, and that's what matters. For a relic, I'm running with a corrosive Bone of the Ancients to buff the Hornet and Topnia damage. Additionally, it will provide cooldown rate. This is the skill tree that I ran with for the first 5 peak runs. It's identical to the one that I showed in the UVHM video. Now it's not optimal for the gear that I ran with because I forgot to respec until OP5, but I was able to get through with it. I didn't use any shock weapons, so Wires Don't Talk essentially became useless for these runs. I also used a B shield for these runs, so sharing is caring was also useless. The build that I ran for OP5 is a little more optimal, and I tweaked it as I went further into the peak, and I'll explain why as we get there. There's nothing too crazy in the OP0 run. You will encounter skags in the first area, including some rabid skags. The second area will have a mix of skags and bandits. The thing to watch out for here are the 2 slag skags at the end. You cannot slag them, but they can be crit while they are spitting out slag. With Gaige, it can be hard to crit them if you have high anarchy, so just do your best to take them out. In the next area, you will see a new enemy called a spider tank, and there may also be a bar tank along with it. There will be 2 of some combination of these, either 1 of each or 2 of the same. Spider tanks can apply a fire dot to you, so you want to take them out ASAP. Bar tanks will launch slow-moving explosive projectiles at you and are better armored than spider tanks. These 2 are weakest to corrosion, so having a hornet here will go a long way. After one of them is killed, more skags will spawn in the area. The next area will have a mix of skags and bandits. At the end of it, you will get 2 blaster nomads that have a very powerful attack you do not want to get caught in. It takes a while to charge up, and that's when you want to hit them. The next area will have more bandits and a spider tank towards the end. The next area will have a mix of skags. You can get rabids and slag skags here, which you want to prioritize. At the end of this area, you will get 2 badass marauders that spawn on top of a bridge. Once you clear this area, there is an intermediate section between this area and the next big area. This intermediate area will have some more bandits. When you hit the Colosseum of Laceration next, you'll fight a wave of skags and then a wave of bandits before taking on the 4 Hyperion assassins from the mission Assassinate the Assassins. They spawn 1 at a time and are relatively easy to kill here, but will get more challenging as you gain OP levels. You'll want to use Death Trap to try and draw aggro, although it may not work as well as intended. Shock is technically the best element for all of them except for Watt, who is resistant to it, but Corrosion is the safest option here because it works just as well as Shock as soon as you take down their shields, which aren't too hard to break, and none of them are resistant to it. Wreath will spawn first. He is the tankiest of the 4. He will normally attack from melee range, but he does have a ranged attack that can apply a fire dot. This dot is not that bad at lower OP levels, but can be lethal at higher ones, so he's a high priority. Ralph will spawn next and is also pretty tanky, but not as much as Wreath. He will have a shotgun and moves pretty quickly. He's very aggressive and can be hard to get away from, so he's also a high priority. Watt will spawn next, and he's the squishiest of the 4. As I mentioned, he is resistant to shock. He will attack from range, but if you can manage to get close to him, he will try to melee you. He has a kicking animation, and while he's in the middle of it, you can go around him in circles and he won't hit you. Last is Wunny, who is about as tanky as Wreath is. Wunny is slow, but powerful. He will charge at you with a slow trot and can do a lot of damage if he hits you. but he is pretty easy to outrun. He has a shield on his back and is resistant to explosive damage. After you complete your first run, Tannis will speak and you will get a pop-up message saying you have unlocked a new OP level. Once you get this message, you can technically save and quit and will still have the new OP level unlocked. If you save and quit and then start the game, you'll get a prompt asking you what OP level you want to play on, and you only need to hit a button to increase it to OP1. Something that did happen to me during my OP2 run that I want to mention now is that after I killed the last of the assassins, I accidentally downed myself with a rocket launcher. Now the game recognized that I had cleared the area, but I was in the process of bleeding out. If this happens, don't press the key to bleed out. I got the pop-up message in Fight for Your Life and was able to unlock the next level. I just want to mention this as a warning to let the bleed out timer run to completion, because you might still get the pop-up message. When you're back in the game at OP1, you can turn the mission into Tannis if you didn't already and start the OP1 run to go for OP2. For my OP1 run, I used the exact same gear that I did for the OP0 run. In the OP1 run, the first area will start off with a bunch of spider ants. You will see slagged Centurion spider ants which cannot be slagged. To hit their crit spot, you'll have to get behind them, and they are tanky. After you kill the first set of spider ants, you will get some loaders to spawn. Throughout the peak, you will see exploders, warloaders, sergeant loaders, ion loaders, and RPG loaders. There will also be super and ultimate badass loaders. All are weakest to corrosive damage. You will also see surveyors for the first time here. Now surveyors become a big problem later in the peak because they will heal everything, and they will do it quickly. So if you take an enemy down to 10% of its health and struggle to do it, a surveyor can come in and fully heal them in a few seconds. They should be your #1 priority, especially if you get badass surveyors. Surveyors can be taken out pretty easily with a bee and a hornet. Just wait until they are flying right at you to shoot them. It might be a good idea to activate Discord if you have near or above 200 stacks. After all of that, you will have to kill 2 Emperor Spider Ants before moving on to the next area. The next area will have more loaders and Spider Ants, ending with 2 Emperor Spider Ants and 2 Surveyors. The area after the vendor will contain more Spider Ants with an introduction to Scorch at the end. Scorch will be resistant to fire as would be expected for a fire Spider Ant. Deathtrap can draw aggro here and give you a free shot at Scorch's crit spot. The following area will have a combination of loaders and surveyors. You can get any type of loader here, including badass variants. The next area will have more loaders with an ultimate badass loader at the end. The area after this will contain a mix of spider ants, loaders, and surveyors, with nothing too surprising. The area before the Colosseum will have exploders followed by other loaders. When you get to the Assassin's Arena, there will be a combination of spider ants, loaders, and surveyors before you fight the assassins 2 at a time. Whenever you get 2 at a time, you will either fight the combination of Ralph and Wunny, or the combination of Wreath and Watt. Sometimes you will see one combination over the other, but at OP1, you will get Ralph and Wunny first. Ralph is the bigger threat here, and you want to take him out first. Wunny can be neutralized by staying out of his line of sight. After both are down, Wreath and Watt will spawn. Wreath is the bigger threat here, but Watt can easily be taken out first because of his lower health. Once you defeat them, the run is complete. For this run, I relied heavily on the Hornet as it was the best option for killing surveyors and loaders. The Hydra can be good for spider ants if you can safely crit them from point blank range, but I would stick with the Hornet otherwise. For the OP2 run, I used all of the same gear except for new OP2 Hydra. I felt like the level 81 was falling off when I fought the assassins in the previous run, so I grabbed a new one. The start of the OP2 run will have a mixture of skags, spider ants, and surveyors, and will end with a spider or bar tank. The next area will start with another spider or bar tank and some more skags and spider ants. There will be a lot more spider ants and skags before ending with 2 badass slag skags, surveyors, and a wide variety of other things, but nothing with bullets here. This first stretch can be tricky because if you are relying mainly on one gun, you can easily run out of ammo. Make sure to learn where all of the ammo crates are, not just for this area, but in general, because ammo expenditure is a common theme the further you go, and there won't always be an available vendor. If you have below a third of your max ammo for one gun type, you can use this to your advantage when opening containers, as you are more likely to get ammo for said type. Open all of the containers before you pick any up, and you should see a lot of ammo for the gun type you need it for. In the next area, you will get an immediate Scorch. Once Scorch is dead, you will get some skags and spider ants. The next area will have a mix of surveyors, bandits, and loaders. After a wave, you will encounter super badass surveyors for the first time. Now these should be your #1 priority. Along with instantly healing enemies, they are harder to take down than regular surveyors and have a brutal shock attack that can apply a dot and instantly end a run. If you can't hit them head on, try to weaken an enemy to get the surveyor to heal it. The next area will have a mix of surveyors, potentially with some badass ones, loaders, and bandits before ending with Bonehead. Bonehead will spawn in this area in every subsequent run. The following area can be pretty tough, as you will encounter 2 spider or bar tanks along with surveyors and a little bit of everything else. Try to find cover and take out the surveyors first, then go for the spider tanks if they get too close. Before you get to the Coliseum, you'll get a mixture of loaders, bandits, and surveyors on the bridge. When you enter the Coliseum, you'll get a mixture of loaders and bandits. After killing all of them, you will fight the assassins in pairs, and they will also spawn with surveyors. If you can take out the assassins before the surveyors can heal them, then do this. Ralph and Wunny will spawn first, and the other 2 will not spawn as long as the first set of surveyors are still alive. The same will go for Wreath and Watt. If you can take them out before the surveyors can heal them, then do so. Completing this will unlock OP3. I refarmed a lot of gear at OP3. I grabbed a new Hornet, a new Bee, and a new Corrosive Topnia. I also picked up a Blockhead. This is a unique shotgun that drops from badass creepers in the caustic caverns and has a set spread. It also only comes in fire. Now fire is not the best element for the Peak, but this is a great shotgun on Gaige. The pellets ricochet without close enough, so it does not get a damage penalty from it, and it deals 100% splash damage, which gets boosted by Anarchy. I felt the Hydra was not doing as well, so I wanted a more ammo-friendly shotgun to unload the burden I was putting on my Hornet. Additionally, it's also elemental. I mainly used it for bandits and spider ants, and for the assassins. I did make the mistake of not using a Firebone of the Ancients that I got when farming the corrosive one, but it worked out in the end. I also picked up a corrosive Lady Fist for constructors, which we'll see a number of in this run. For the start of the OP3 run, the first thing that will spawn is a constructor, which a Lady Fist and a Bee can take out easily. Now the crit spot for the constructor takes equal damage from all elements, but corrosive damage is just the best overall in the Peak, so it's a good pickup. After the constructor, there will be more bandits and spider ants before the area ends with another constructor and more bandits. The next area will start with a couple of bandits, followed by some midgets before you get to the end of this area to find a constructor and some spider ants. Now you should see the theme by now. This is the constructor peak, and there are a number of them throughout. Once you drop down after the ammo vendor, you will get a wave of bandits before fighting double Scorches. Scorch is easy enough to outrun unless he does his rolling move, and Deathtrap once again can draw aggro here. When he does, just shoot Scorch in his crit spot with a Lady Fist and a Bee for a quick kill. In the next area, you will get a wave of bandits and spider ants followed by the Black Queen and some more bandits. The Black Queen will spawn in this area for the rest of your Peak runs. She launches a web at you that can slow you down and deal pretty big damage, so do your best to dodge it. She can also spawn small spider ants that can be troublesome. Deathtrap can take aggro here, giving you a clear shot at her crit spot. Now there's a lot happening in the next area. You'll get midget spawns along with 2 boneheads, and a train will appear overhead that spawns with multiple turrets. The turrets will go away if you kill everything else in the area, but it's probably best to try and take them out first. After some time, you will get a 3rd bonehead, but there's not much else to this area after this. When you drop into the next area, there will be an immediate constructor spawn, along with some bandits and spider ants. Once the constructor is down, things should go pretty smoothly. Right before the Colosseum, a constructor will spawn on the bridge, but that is all that will spawn in this area. In the Colosseum, you will get an immediate assassin spawn. First, Wreath and Watt will spawn. As soon as you kill one of them, the other 2 will spawn. So take Wreath out first, because Watt is easier to get a second wind off of. When Deathtrap is down, you'll want to take cover and deal whatever damage you can from behind cover. You can make good use of close enough, then summon Deathtrap as soon as you can. Once you complete this area, a new area will unlock, extending the peak. There's a wave of pretty simple enemies before 2 spider tanks spawn, followed by a 3rd after those go down. Just try not to get caught out when they do spawn. In the next area, there will be another constructor and other mobs. This area can get pretty congested, so keep in mind that you can go back into the connecting strip between the last area and the current one. You'll want to take out the constructor ASAP to prevent more things from spawning, but again, it can be tricky. When you drop down to the next area, 2 badass marauders will spawn at the top of the hill. Killing them will cause a spider tank to spawn along with some psychos. Once you kill all of them, the run is over and OP4 is unlocked. For the OP4 run, I used all of the same gear as the OP3 run. This run is going to start off with turrets. A lot of turrets. Alongside turrets in the first area, you will also see spider and bar tanks. The Hornet can easily deal with both, but remember to use slag. After you kill the first set of turrets and spider tanks, there will be more turrets along with rabid skags. In the next area, you will get 4 turrets lined up in a row. After that, there will be a number of loaders and surveyors, followed up by more turrets on the top of the wall in front of the next area. And surveyors. You can try to use Deathtrap to aggro the turrets and get closer to them, because it will be hard to hit them from long range unless you have a sniper rifle, which in my case I didn't. After taking out the turrets, an ultimate badass loader will spawn. After this area, you will get 2 Scorches and 2 Surveyors. That's all that's here, I promise. Just kidding, there's 2 more turrets that spawn after you kill that first Scorch. The next area will have a mix of things before fighting 2 Black Queens by themselves, unless they spawn Praetorians. Try to focus down one of them instead of splitting your damage between them to prevent at least one from spawning children. In the next area, you will get 3 immediate boneheads. When you kill the first one, turrets will spawn on the wall near where Bonehead spawns, and surveyors will spawn as well. In the next area, you will get regular mobs, including RPG loaders and rabid skags. After clearing all of these, Doc Mercy will spawn. He will spawn here for all remaining runs. Prior to the assassins, there will be 1 lone turret that spawns on the bridge. When you enter the Assassin's Arena, 4 turrets will spawn around the outer edge. When you destroy them, Ralph and Wunny will spawn. When you take one of them down, 4 more turrets will spawn. When you destroy 3 of the turrets, the remaining 2 assassins will spawn. It might be wise to kill the first 2 assassins first and then 3 turrets so you don't have to deal with 3 assassins at once. In the next area, there will be a lot of surveyors and loaders. There are a few ultimate badasses here, but nothing too tricky. The next area will start off with a few loaders. Killing these will cause 4 turrets to spawn on the wall by the stairs leading to the next area. Then you will get a few surveyors along with badass slag skegs to end this area. The last area will start off with a number of exploders before spawning 2 surveyors and a warloader. Once everything is dead, OP5 is unlocked. For OP5, I did respec. I took some points from around the tree and maxed out the nth degree. I spec'd out of sharing is caring and wires don't talk and put points into evil enchantress because I still wanted to get down to make it sparkle, and 1 point from both cooking up trouble and 20% cooler to put into strength of 5 gorillas. I also moved some points around from the tier 1 skills in the Little Big Trouble tree to allow for both the nth degree and strength of 5 gorillas to be maxed out. For gear, the only thing I added was a corrosive Pimpernel. I wasn't too picky with the parts, but I wanted a corrosive one with a mellow on grip for the bonus mag size and reload speed. This gun is the reason that I wanted to spec 5 points into the nth degree. You can get a bore effect with the nth degree in the Pimpernel because all of the pellets count towards the nth degree count. So if all of the bullets hit a target, you can get multiple nth degree ricochets from one shot. You'll see where this can come in handy later. The first area of the OP5 peak run has a lot of mobs, but nothing too crazy. The next area will start off with a few exploders, followed by some more after the first few explode. Then you will get some more mobs before 2 badass loaders spawn in front of the gate with some surveyors and some other mobs. The Pimpernel will make quick work of pretty much anything here. In the next area, you will get 3 Scorches. Each come one at a time. The first and last will spawn alone, and the second will spawn with other mobs. The next area will start with some more mobs and surveyors. More will spawn as you keep killing before 2 Black Queens spawn in. In the following area, 2 Boneheads will immediately spawn along with 3 turrets overhead. When the first 2 Boneheads go down, 2 more will spawn in along with a number of other mobs. The next area will start off with a few mobs with more spawning as you kill them, ending with 2 Doc Mercies. Let Death Trap draw aggro here and you can just shoot them with a Pimpernel. A Corrosive Topnia is also not a bad option. In the area before the assassins, 3 badass marauders will spawn. You'll want to shoot them from range if you can. If you go down to them, a Topnia should save you as long as they're slagged. In the assassins arena, Wreath and Watt will spawn first. When you kill one of them, a spider tank will spawn in the middle of the arena. I recommend killing the spider tank first because it takes up a big portion of the arena, and Wunny and Ralph are going to spawn as soon as you get your next kill. The spider tank can go down easy with the nth degree and the Pimpernel if you shoot its neck, giving you that bore effect. Try to kill Wreath first if you can. After Wunny and Ralph, the area is done. The next area doesn't have anything noteworthy. There's a lot of mobs and a lot of room to work with. A potential badass surveyor spawn is probably going to be your biggest concern here. In the next area, you'll get a spider tank along with a few other mobs. Killing the first spider tank will cause another to spawn along with more mobs. The next area will have a surveyor and a few mobs, followed by 2 surveyors and a random badass spawn. The next area has the final boss of Digistruct Peak, also known as Oh My God What the Hell. The strategy for this will be the same all the way up to OP10. Summon Death Trap as he spawns in and then make sure to slag him. Then with the Corrosive Pimpernel, shoot his neck to get a ton of damage in. The nth degree and the Pimpernel pellets will do their thing and take out a giant chunk of health, and you can finish it off with the Pimpernel. At OP6, I refarmed a bunch of new gear. I grabbed a new Blockhead, a new Corrosive Topnia, a new Bee, which happened to have a really low recharge delay, and a new Hornet. The spec is the same as the OP5 run. Starting the OP6 run, you will first run into a spider tank. The Pimpernel will easily take it out. There will be a few more along with some mobs in this area, ending with a spider tank and 2 Emperor spider ants. In the next area, mobs will spawn a couple at a time before ending with 2 Scorches. Scorch will spawn here for the remainder of the peak runs, always 2 at a time. The next area will start off slow with Skag spawning 2 at a time before the game decides to spawn Dukino's mom. Now the OP6 Dukino's mom spawn is hard only for the fact that if you go down, you can only second wind off of Dukino's mom. You have to be careful of the lightning balls that she spits out. They will health gate you. You can shoot her with a grog nozzle or throw a Stormfront or chain lightning while holding the grog to heal. All of her attacks can health gate, but this is the only one that is hard to escape. She has a beam that she will spit out of her mouth, but there is a charge up period where you can take cover. As long as you don't get too close to her, you should be able to dodge any other attacks. Just wail on her with a corrosive Pimpernel while walking around the rock in the middle. You can crit her in her mouth as she walks, and you can do it more easily when she is roaring. She will prevent your shield from recharging, so keep this in mind if you are using a bee. She will spawn in this area for the remaining runs. In the next area, you will get 2 instant Black Queen spawns and a bunch of other spider ants, including badasses. This area can get hectic, so you can actually stay in the area where Dukino's mom spawns to make it a bit easier. In the next area, you will see a bit of every kind of enemy before 3 boneheads at the end of the arena. The next area is pretty tame. You'll get a few mobs before getting 2 Doc Mercies. There will be 2 badass enemies before the Assassin's Arena. Once you're in the arena, Wreath and Watt will spawn first. Killing one of them will cause additional mobs to spawn. Once everything is dead, Ralph and Wunny will spawn. The next area will have a mix of everything, including a few spider tanks and a bunch of surveyors. Make sure to watch out for any badass surveyors here. The next area will start with a constructor and some surveyors with some other mobs mixed in. In the next area, you'll start with a mix of regular mobs followed by a wave of badass mobs. The run will end with oh my god what the hell, and once you defeat it, you will have unlocked OP7. For the OP7 run, I used the same gear as the OP6 run, except for a shock ricochet fibber that I farmed. I was saving this gun for as long as I could to avoid having to farm a new one at some point during the peak runs. Now you can use a level 80 fibber with an OP7B, but the moment your shield goes down, your fibber will become ineffective. In getting a shock fibber, I also respec'd into Wires Don't Talk, taking points out of Evil Enchantress. Everything else was the same. OP7 is arguably the hardest run as all of the spawns are set, whereas OP8, 9, and 10 are based on spawns from all the previous runs, so some may be easier. It will start with 2 badass enemies before the main area, and more in the main area, along with a number of surveyors. The next area will start off with turrets and mobs at the bottom of the hill, then loaders as you make your way to the gate to the next area. You'll get some more mobs before ending with double Scorches and 4 surveyors. I recommend focusing the surveyors while running from the Scorches. When you drop down into the next area, you will get an instant Dukino's mom spawn. This time, she will spawn with midgets that you can use to second wind if you go down. Use Death Trap right away to take aggro from her and then walk her around the rock. In the next area, you will see regular mobs followed by a few badass enemies before getting 2 Black Queens at the end. You can retreat to Dukino's mom's area if you get overwhelmed. In the next area, you will see 3 different waves. The first will have Bonehead and Bandits. The second will have Bonehead with loaders and surveyors. And the third will have 2 Boneheads with 3 badasses. The next area will be similar in format. You will get 1 Doc Mercy with a few enemies, then another Doc Mercy with some more enemies, ending with a Doc Mercy and a Constructor. If you can get Doc Mercy down quickly before the Constructor has a chance to spawn a lot of enemies, do it, and then you can just focus the Constructor. There will be a handful of mobs in the area before the assassins, and then the real fun will begin once you enter the Coliseum. All 4 assassins spawn at once. I'll throw magic missiles at both Wreath and Ralph, and I try to focus Wreath first. Now I didn't have any here, but singularity grenades are great in the arena as you can group the assassins up and spam a Topney at them. Use Death Trap to draw aggro and hope that it works, because this fight is probably the toughest in all of the peak. The next area will have a wide assortment of enemies, ending with a Saturn spawn. Now if Saturn doesn't spawn and you don't see any enemies on the minimap, that means there is an enemy way out at the other end of this area. You want to get that enemy to come to you because you want to be up the hill when Saturn spawns. For Saturn, I used the corrosive Pimpernel from a safe distance by the vendors. You can use the wall here for cover. You do want to be careful in case Saturn starts walking up the hill, in which case you'll want to retreat to the Assassin's Arena. Saturn isn't really that tough of an enemy, but he is tanky, so one mistake in a long fight can cost you the run. The next area will start with 4 turrets on the wall near the stairs to the next area, similar to the OP4 run, along with a badass enemy, followed by a few other mobs and 2 badass slag skags. The next area is also another run killer. There will be a spider tank and a badass surveyor when you drop down. If you kill these, you will get 2 more badass surveyors and 3 badass enemies. Try to weaken the badass enemies to get the surveyors to heal them, because having 2 flying around and shooting you with a shock blast can end the run in an instant. Once you get past this area, it's just oh my god what the hell on your way to OP8. Now after you beat the OP7 peak, the OP8, 9, and 10 runs will just be more of the same. You will get random spawns in each area that will all have been seen before in a previous run. The only differences are that when Saturn spawns, there will be 2 of them, enemies will have more health, and will have more damage reduction. You can run through OP8 and get bad spawns and die and then do another run and breeze through it. RNG will dictate everything you see, you just have to react to it. Once I hit OP8, I farmed the remaining gear that would take me to OP10. I grabbed a Shock Hail with a Vladov grip from round 5 of the Bandit Slaughter. This weapon is a really strong healing weapon with high anarchy and deals damage unlike the Grog Nozzle. With this gun, I'm now relying entirely on the Magic Missile and Interspersed Outburst for slag. Next, I farmed a Twister from OOO in the Hammerlock DLC. This shotgun is a fantastic weapon for Gaige. It's a Jacobs shotgun that will always spawn in shock and has a high pellet count. The projectiles travel in the shape of a twister and spin around as if they were in one, giving projectiles a chance to hit a target more than once. They also travel through enemies and can bounce off of walls and hit targets again with close enough. I also farmed for a new shock Topnia. For items, I farmed a chaotic good Necromancer class mod from the Tiny Tina DLC. I was looking specifically for a +6 for Wires Don't Talk and +5 in Made of Sterner Stuff to make Death Trap more tanky. This class mod will also buff fire rate and reload speed, which is just an overall DPS increase from the Legendary Anarchist. Because of the Twister and the Necromancer comm, I decided to go with a full shock build for these 2 runs. I did use the OP5 Corrosive Pimpernel for Spider Tanks, Watt, Saturn, and oh my god what the hell, but other than that I relied on shock weapons which were buffed by Wires Don't Talk. I also re-spec'd once again. I maxed out Pre-Shrunk Cyberpunk and took off Make It Sparkle. With the Necromancer comm, my goal was to make Death Trap stay alive longer when he aggroed enemies. For this, I threw 1 point in Made of Sterner Stuff, which would get boosted by the class mod. This came at the cost of cooldown reduction from 20% cooler. I also moved a few points between Myelin, More Pep, and Strength of 5 Gorillas. I also got a new OP8B and a Shock Bone of the Ancients that I farmed at OP0. The plan was to use a Legendary Anarchist up to Dukino's mom and then switch to the Necromancer comm for her until the end of the run. The Fibber and the Bee will pretty much do all of the work for you. It's just a very strong combination. You can take cover while you shoot the ground and kill things. It's also really good for surveyors. All you have to do is shoot near a wall they're flying by and it will have a chance of hitting them. The hail is pretty solid as a healing weapon, but I would switch to a grog nozzle when you fight the assassins because things can get pretty hairy in there. The fibber will work on Scorch, Dukino's mom, the Black Queen, Bonehead, Doc Mercy, literally every boss. Even Saturn, but I like using the corrosive Pimpernel with the OP8B on Saturn for a potential quote-unquote bore proc. The Twister will work great for trash mobs and things like Scorch and the Black Queen if they're slagged and you can get behind them. It's also pretty great for Doc Mercy. I'd save the Pimpernel for Oh My God What the Hell and the Spider Tanks, Saturn, and Watt. Other than that, the Fibber and the Bee can pretty much carry you to OP10. Just before I end this, I want to say that getting to OP10 is a great challenge, but ultimately not necessary. It can be pretty limiting in regards to playstyle because the damage reduction is just so high that fewer builds will be successful at OP10 compared to level 80, so it may not be worth it for you. There are no benefits to playing at OP10 versus level 80 other than higher level gear. This is just something to think about before you decide whether or not you want to get to OP10. That's going to do it for this one, guys. If you guys have any other strategies or tips you'd like to share, or any other questions for me, feel free to leave it in the comments. Hopefully your journey to OP10 is a nice and easy one, and hopefully this video helps you. Thanks for watching, everyone.